After 30 years of marriage, I thought I knew myself. Until he walked in. Initially, the suitcase escaped my attention. I passed it twice in the hallway, sidetracked by a half-boiled kettle and my husband's voice from the garden, where he was replanting the same hydrangea bush for the third time that week. On my third pass, I stopped. His son's name was etched in permanent marker on the faded handle. I paused, breath held as the kettle shrieked, a nagging signal that chaos was imminent. He came that afternoon, a soft knock and averted eyes, no fanfare. He had matured, shoulders wider, jaw more defined, yet retained that careful manner of stepping into a room, as if to avoid disrupting the atmosphere. My husband welcomed him with a calm, habitual pride that felt more like routine than warmth. They embraced, shared a few remarks on traffic and weather, and just like that, a guest appeared for an indeterminate duration. He chose the guest room upstairs, directly opposite ours. The sound of footsteps above caught me off guard, revealing how much I truly noticed them. The creaking floorboards whispered secrets. I started to anticipate his actions, follow his flow. The day began with his cologne's subtle scent, lingering down the stairs long before he appeared. It hovered, subtle yet persistent, like an unspoken question. The initial days unfolded predictably. Charming dialogue at the table, casual references to jobs and future endeavors, the soft clatter of utensils on plates. My husband smiled, thrilled to have him back. I smiled on cue, laughed when invited, poured wine from routine. Yet, a change stirred within me as I caught his gaze. Not staring, merely lingering in his gaze a moment too long. It lacked moment too intense or impropriety. It was perceptive still, and it made me feel acknowledged in a way that felt thrillingly right. The fourth evening arrived, and it happened. I had just stepped out of the shower. The silence in the house was striking. I entered the hallway, towel-clad, convinced I was alone. As I fiddled with the fabric at my chest, I caught sight of him at the top of the stairs. He stepped in from the back porch, our gazes entwined. No sharp intake of breath, no dramatic gasp, only silence. His gaze flickered down, lingering on my bare shoulders and the damp strands of hair clinging to my neck, before returning to meet my eyes. I ought to have turned, dashed to the bedroom, feigned ignorance of his presence, yet I did not. I lingered a moment too long. I started noticing how I dressed, even at home, a tailored blouse rather than the typical loose fit, tinted lip balm, a forgotten silk robe untouched for years. I convinced myself it was self-care, but I knew better. He exhibited courtesy, forever, yet it was the courtesy that ignited my passion. As he passed me the coffee, our fingers grazed, and that moment lingered, intentional and electric. As I leaned over the sink, he brushed past, his hand lingering on the counter beside mine, uncomfortably close. Silence reigned. We pretended the tension wasn't rising. My husband overlooked it all. He mentioned putting up new shelves in the garage, refinancing the mortgage, and calling his cousin in Florida. He was oblivious to my flinch at his touch or the way I turned my face when he gently acknowledged me. It lacked intent. It was emptiness. He often retired early. I lingered downstairs, feigning kitchen chores, checking emails, aimlessly scrolling through trivial news. Ultimately, it was the silence that kept me there. The kind he occasionally shared from across the room. His book lay open, untouched. As his gaze met mine in the kitchen window's reflection, I started to capture him bit by bit. His hand stirred the tea, the slope of his neck leaned forward, a slight furrow between his brows as he pondered. I wasn't meant to see these things. They turned into the brightest moments of my day. One evening, I reached for a fallen spoon and our hands met. My heartbeat thudded against my chest. He paused, hands beneath mine, gazing at me, not with longing but with a profound intensity, perhaps acknowledgement. I kept my hand still. He remained still. In an instant, the foundation of our home shattered. Dreams have returned, vivid memories, feelings that linger that stole my breath at dawn. At times, they were merely silhouettes in heat. At times, they exceeded that. Waking beside my husband, his back turned, steady breaths, I felt suspended between two worlds. One exuded safety, the other vibrated with life. I wasn't seeking conflict. Betrayal was never in my plans. What began as a mere glance was evolving into an undeniable tension. Unremarkable, calm and steady. A subtle simmer beneath it all. The smoke pressed against my chest. He seldom said much at dinner. Yet that night he inquired if I needed assistance with the dishes. I consented, perhaps too hastily. We stood close, exchanging plates, eyes averted like kids in class. His fingers brushed against mine as he grabbed the sponge, and I gasped. While folding laundry in the bedroom, I gazed at the mirror opposite the bed. I grazed the hollow of my throat. My reflection stared back, unrepentant. It gazed back, ravenous. This was just the start. The next morning rain fell. Just a light drizzle. A relentless, murmuring drizzle that clings to glass and seeps into your very bones. I lingered by the kitchen's glass door, observing droplets compete down the pane, my fingers clutching a once warm cup now cold. He lingered in my shadow. I knew it without looking back. His presence was palpable. The sensation of anticipation before the storm breaks. A change lingered, faint yet undeniable. Initially, he remained silent. Entered silently. Barefoot in a gray t-shirt that hugged his chest, I felt my own breath sharpen. The quiet between us grew heavier, charged with unspoken words. Not uneasy, completely satisfied. Java? I inquired, finally facing him. He acknowledged with a nod. Appreciate it. I poured it slowly, hands steady, turmoil brewing within. As I passed him the mug, our fingers brushed. Once more. This time he stayed put. I didn't either. It was brief, yet it altered the essence of the moment. His gaze held mine, a moment suspended in time, not looking, not doubting, just noting. It felt like we had stepped over an unseen line. We faced each other, the table between us a mere suggestion, not a barrier. He sipped. I gazed at his hand, veins tracing his wrist. He cradled the cup as if it bore a gravity beyond its ceramic form. You look tired, he remarked, his tone unusually soft. Rest eluded me. My response was hasty. Nightmares? Only the odd ones. He nodded, suggesting a deeper understanding of my words. He silently stepped aside, opened the back door, and walked into the misty morning as if craving fresh air. I paused, then trailed behind. Uncertainty lingers. Perhaps I wished he wouldn't face solitude out there. Perhaps solitude wasn't my choice in this space. The garden transformed under the rain's embrace. Gentler, as if the world had faded at the borders. He lingered by the hydrangea bush that had captivated my husband for days. Arms folded, shoulders drawn in. I paused next to him, feeling the warmth of his skin. Have you always enjoyed the rain? I inquired. He shot me a look. It's genuine, no facade here. His answer caught me off guard and I smiled. Uncommon. We lingered in quiet, the sort that needs no interruption. He turned slightly, our shoulders brushing just enough. You seem unhappy, he remarked. Calmly aware, not judgmental. I hesitated before responding. I was unaware of the way. It wasn't that I felt discontent. My husband was gentle, dependable. He repaired the house unprompted. He kept his voice steady, our beats intertwined. Cozy, reliable. Yet therein lay the issue. I was a ghost gliding through bright spaces, grinning from habit. I'm not unhappy, I finally admitted. Times I feel unseen. He stared at me endlessly. You aren't. Uncertain who initiated. Perhaps it was a shared fault. Perhaps it was the rain, the still garden, the unbridgeable intimacy of our minds. In an instant, his hand found its way to my waist. Illumination. Is it a question? My breath caught. Our eyes locked. There was a silent closeness. There was no rush. It lacked intensity. We moved slowly and cautiously, as if fearing to shatter something fragile. His breath intertwined with mine. His presence felt near, tangible, damp and intimate. His fingers hesitated, hovering before finally pressing firmly against my back. I let him go. I had no tension, pull, unspoken connection to. As we separated, silence enveloped us, heavy and electric. I turned my gaze, fixated on the rain, seeking answers in its descent. He retreated slightly and murmured, I'm sorry. I simply shook my head. Refrained from that. Silence followed. We stood still, rain drenching our sleeves, our minds echoing louder than the storm. In the bathroom, I dried my hair, hands shaking. I stared at my reflection, bracing for the guilt to wash over me. It never arrived. Unexpectedly different. Chaos reigned. Affirmative. A hint of fear flickered in the nod. Yet remorse? What I experienced was clarity. After what seemed like ages, I finally felt something genuine. Something charged. Something that belongs to me. I donned my clothes with care. A delicate blouse, gentle at the neckline. A lace bra untouched for months, hidden from sight. I did it for myself. Perhaps I did. The boundaries had blurred beyond recognition. As the documentary played, my husband gently massaged my shoulders. His hands radiated warmth, skilled and assured. I shut my eyes, seeking a sensation. I sought to allow the softness to touch the depths of my yearning soul. Yet only distance lingered. A warmth devoid of flame. I pressed my lips to his, a ritual of the night. He grinned. I rested next to him, inches apart on the mattress, yet bound by years of knowing each other. My heart was downstairs on the back porch, ensnared by the rain. I understood instinctively that that morning was merely a beginning, not even halfway there. A hint of the profound beneath. An unspoken truth lingered between us, silently embraced yet unnamed. The day after the kiss played out like any ordinary day. At first glance, my husband, always practical, rose early to make a list of home repairs he aimed to complete before summer set in. The gentle rustle of slippers echoed through the hall. He murmured to himself about hinges, mulch, and extension cords. I lingered in bed, gazing at the ceiling, hoping the plaster's texture might reveal answers to unasked questions. The rain-soaked morning lingered in my body's memory, not with the grand gestures of romance novels, but through quiet betrayals. I lingered at the mirror. I traced my bottom lip with a finger, remembering the heaviness of his breath, the warmth of his hand against my fabric. I sensed it in my stride, more deliberate, aware of my body's journey through space. The atmosphere shifted, suddenly conscious of my presence in a way it never had been before. I set a plate before my husband at breakfast. He thanked me, eyes glued to his phone. I observed his fingers dance across the keys, a subtle frown etched above his nose. He delved into lawn care literature. Once more, I cradled my coffee, savoring its warmth against the chill of the room. Then he brought it up. How about a trip to the cabin this weekend? Escape for a few days. My spoon suspended in ice. Us? He acknowledged. Us. And him naturally. It will benefit all. New surroundings. Breathe deep and feel alive. I stole a look over the table. He was absent. His absence throbbed within me. Envision solitude in the countryside, where silence reigns and doors are scarce. What I felt wasn't fear. Anticipation tinged with shame. Could be pleasant, I whispered. The plan was set. Departed Friday morning. The car ride was still, broken only by light chatter and my husband's rare attempts at humor. As he sought to connect more than usual, I occupied the front passenger seat, sensing the presence looming behind me. Not stifling, yet captivating. At each red light, I felt his eyes burning into my neck. As I leaned in to tweak the radio, his gaze traced the line of my spine. It was intolerable. Consumed me. By late afternoon, we arrived at the cabin, a modest wooden house among pine trees, where cell reception fades and the wind whispers through the leaves. This place has always appealed to me. The silence now carried a menacing weight. The men hefted the bags as I flung open windows and swept away the dust of neglect. Pine and dampwood filled the air, recognizable, yet infused with a fresh energy. I observed his movements, the suitcase gripped in one hand, each step radiating quiet confidence. His quiet was more powerful than any speech. We gathered on the porch that evening, the three of us. The sunset whispered, a hint of color gracing the sky. My husband poured wine, cracked jokes about past trips, and recounted a familiar story. I chuckled at the perfect times, acknowledged when necessary. Yet I felt the weight of his proximity, a sharp awareness gnawing at me. We didn't touch, nor did we meet each other's gaze, yet our knees nearly grazed. My skin responded to his closeness. His every move drew me in irresistibly. My husband left around 9, citing a headache. He pressed his lips to my crown and vanished indoors, leaving us solitary on the porch. I averted my gaze from him initially. The silence hung heavy between us. I mentioned he'd hit the hay early as expected. He paused before responding. Hope flickered. I faced him. The porch light etched shadows on his cheekbone, lending him an air of age and determination. This is serious, I stated. My voice was steadier than my feelings. It's not a number. So what is it? His gaze met mine, deep and sincere. We didn't plan for this, yet here we are. His words hit me like a slap on calm water. I anticipated evasion, reluctance, perhaps an apology. This calm truth allowed no space for pretense. I gulped. What are we meant to do with it? I'm unsure. Yet I can't ignore the reality unfolding. Are you able to? I remained silent, unable to respond. We lingered in silence, not from lack of words, but to preserve the clarity of our shared understanding. I gazed into the shadowy woods, the trees whispering secrets through their swaying branches. As I rose to enter, I sensed his gaze on me, not through ownership nor longing, but through a profound essence. A recognition, a tension, pull, unspoken connection that reflected my own. The guest room light flickered beneath the door as I walked by. I paused. For a fleeting moment I craved to knock. I longed to swing the door wide and watch it all unfold. Yet I did not. I quietly entered our room, settling into the bed that had held our memories for years. My husband slept soundly, his breath steady, hand curled by his face like a child's. I observed him intently. He appeared serene, full of trust. I reclined gently, mindful of the stillness around me. Yet within, the tempest was already brewing. I rose ahead of the rest. The cabin lingered in a gray-blue pre-dawn glow, where light hesitates, and the world holds its breath, poised in anticipation. I perched on the bed's edge, attuned to my husband's soft, steady breaths behind me, oblivious. My feet touched the cold floor, and I slipped on a cardigan, stepping quietly into the hallway. The floorboards groaned underfoot, as if recalling each step I had made in this place. I walked by the guest room. I halted before the closed door, eyes fixed on the slender shadow creeping below. No light existed. Silence. Yet I sensed his presence within. I sensed the mark he was starting to etch into my being. The kitchen below exuded the scent of aged pine and dust. I cracked a window for the fresh morning breeze, filled the kettle, and gazed at the trees beyond. They swayed softly, dancing to a beat I no longer recognized. A change had occurred. Not through force, nor with sharp insight, but with the patient persistence of water shaping rock. He descended moments later, hair still wet from a swift shower, steps light yet confident. He skipped the morning greeting. He strolled to the coffee pot, filled his cup, and leaned against the counter across from me. The quiet between us felt comfortable now. Silence hung heavy with unspoken words. He observed me briefly before he began to speak, contemplating an early departure from the cabin. My stomach churned suddenly. Why not? I believed it could simplify matters. Our gazes locked. Who is it for? He paused before responding. To you. Those words carried a weight, not from nobility but from raw honesty. He had no intention to manipulate or dramatize. He extended an escape route, yet I tension pull unspoken connection to stay. Stop, I whispered. Remain. His expression remained steady, yet I noticed a hint of relaxation in his shoulders. In an instant we crossed yet another boundary. Not through our bodies, not just yet, but through our decisions. That morning my husband proposed a drive to town. Groceries were needed, he stated. Fresh fruit, perhaps some bread from that charming bakery we enjoyed. I was ready to rise when he glanced my way and said, "Why not accompany him? I'll complete the window repair in the back." I paused, caught in stillness. It seemed a snare, though it truly wasn't. His tone was laid back and warm, yet the proposal, it seemed like an exam I was unready for. He smiled up at me. "It'll be great for you both to reconnect. He rarely speaks to me." I surveyed the space. His son gazed at me, a mystery. Of course, I replied, trying to keep my tone casual. "We shall proceed." The car ride began in silence. We navigated the twisting forest paths, windows ajar. the aroma of wet earth and pine enveloping us. The light danced on his face, fingers tapping softly on the wheel, matching the mellow tunes from the radio. "You don't need to say a word," he finally remarked, gaze fixed ahead. "I hadn't intended to," I said. Yet I faced him completely. "You awaken me from a long slumber." He gripped the wheel tighter just a bit. "You have no obligations to me." "I understand," I replied. "Yet I wish to offer something, even if it's merely this instant." He drove into a tiny gas station at the town's outskirts. A cracked sign and one pump stood alone. We lingered briefly before he silenced the engine. "We can skip it," he said. I shook my head. Time to roll. Everything inside felt dreamlike. Fluorescent lights glare, the refrigerator hums. A man reads at the counter. We stroll the narrow aisles, feigning interest in cereal, while every nerve in me thrums with his proximity. He stretched for an item perched on a high shelf. Perhaps orange juice. His arm grazed against mine. Intentional. Never again. As I turned my head, our eyes locked. It was a jolt, a magnetic force that thrilled and chilled. "I can't shake this tension, pull, unspoken connection," I murmured. "I doubt you do." He answered equally softly. Inside the car, the atmosphere shifted. A weight lingered in the air. Silent yet evident. This was beyond mere possibilities. It was about our eventual actions. We paused at the bakery. A warm loaf of sourdough nestled in the paper bag. He picked a tiny box of treats. In line, he edged nearer. "Flour dusts your cheek," he remarked, extending his hand. His thumb grazed beneath my cheekbone. The caress was so soft it seemed unreal. Yet it wasn't. My breath hitched. The rain began anew outside. Not much, just enough to cover the windshield in shimmering dots. He held the door as I slipped inside, my skirt snagging on the seat. He leaned closer, his hand brushing against my knee. The contact remained and I stayed still. "I shouldn't crave you like this," he murmured, voice hushed, still drawn near. "Yet you do," he breathed out. "What about you?" I faced him, breath mingling in the air between us. Affirmative. Then the kiss arrived. Gradual beginnings. Uncertain, yet as our lips touched, a spark flared. It lacked the softness and hesitation of the one in the garden. A kiss that meant something, from restraint moment to intense grows. I traced the curve of his neck with my fingers. His hand moved to the back of my head. The vehicle vanished. The rain vanished. All that mattered was the heat of his mouth on mine. The world faded away, and then, in an instant, it was over. We recoiled, gasping for air. Our foreheads touched softly. "Let's go," he whispered. I acknowledged. We ought to, yet we remained still for a moment. Back at the cabin, my husband remained outside, hammering away at something. He glanced upward, grinning, brushing sweat from his forehead. I gestured. Warmth radiated from the bag of bread in my hands. The kiss lingered, a fire on my lips. As I unpacked groceries, my reflection caught my eye in the window. My cheeks burned with color. My gaze is too radiant. I appeared as a woman teetering on the brink of the irreversible. I wanted to keep it as is. The morning arrived, heavy with a tension that throbbed in the walls. The light streaming through the cabin windows felt weighty, intentional, as if it had borne witness to an unshakable truth. I navigated the kitchen with care, fingertips grazing the countertops, seeking balance. Yesterday's pastries lingered, neglected on the counter. I brushed my fingers through my hair, realizing just how knotted it was. Everything within me felt chaotic, exposed. Sleep eluded me. Memories of the kiss ensnare my thoughts. His presence beside me felt charged, breath warm on my skin, our bodies impossibly close in that cramped car. It was beyond a mere kiss. A change had occurred. An unchangeable fate. Moments later, my husband stood in the doorway, hair damp from a swift shower, a towel carelessly draped over his shoulder. He casually suggested we might head back tomorrow, reaching for the coffee pot. Rain's on the horizon for next week and meetings are stacking up. I nodded, feigning contemplation, most likely a wise choice. He kissed my head, eyes elsewhere, like a habitual pat on a dog. I offered a faint smile, yet it failed to illuminate my eyes. He overlooked it. In the afternoon, He proposed a stroll by the lake. I crafted a reason, claimed laundry awaited, that my knee was troubling me, anything to escape the intimacy I once tension, pull, unspoken connection, now suffocating. He shrugged and walked away, his boots softly thudding on the porch steps. As the door clicked closed, the atmosphere shifted. I stood in the living room, every sense heightened. I waited briefly. The stairs whispered before his presence emerged. He moved deliberately, his gaze fixed on me from the very beginning. No facade existed. Face it head on, the unyielding approach of what loomed ahead. We faced off, the room shrinking under the weight of unspoken tension. I believed you were going, I murmured. He said I was. Seeing you this morning made it clear I couldn't do it. He edged forward. This is incorrect, I stated. He acknowledged. I'm aware. Yet we stayed put. One more step, then another. Upon his arrival, he hesitated to make contact. He merely gazed, truly observed, like capturing each nuance. Breath held, hesitation lingers, fingers tremble slightly. His hand brushed against mine. Our hands met briefly, unintentionally, as if it were second nature. The kiss returned, yet it felt transformed. It moved with a languid intensity, rich with unspoken truths. His lips brushed against mine with purpose, a tantalizing restraint that nearly brought me to my knees. I clutched his shirt, drawing him near, anchoring myself in his presence. His hand found my back, warm and unwavering. I caught my breath, heart pounding faster than my mind could comprehend. Every nerve in me cried out for more. Yet we remained still, trapped in that agonizing limbo. Clothed and cautious, yet undeniably beyond the line we feigned was untouched. As we separated, I leaned my forehead on his chest, breathless. Text, I whispered, this won't end well. He repeated, I know, yet I wish for it to continue. He breathed out, fingers tracing the nape of my neck. Me neither. We lingered, bodies entwined, hearts racing in a frantic attempt to sync. It lacked tension, pull, unspoken connection. Not the kind that stirs whispers of treachery. It was closeness, moment too intense indeed, but intertwined with a deeper, perilous complexity. Upon hearing the distant crunch of gravel, the unmistakable sound of boots approaching, I withdrew. Way too fast. My heart raced, warmth flooding my chest. He retreated, expression masked, jaw tight. I dashed to the kitchen, snatching a dish towel, feigning busyness. When my husband entered, droplets cascading from his jacket, we stood in stark corners of the room, like it never occurred. As though nothing had changed. He glanced at us, then grinned. He remarked with a smile that he had avoided the worst. Take a stroll before the next wave arrives. I nodded, throat parched. That evening I faced the bedroom mirror, lost in uncertainty. My hands instinctively chose a soft cream blouse, subtly accentuating my figure. I picked the forgotten blouse, something I hadn't worn in years, untouched for years. It was fragile, alluring, and entirely unsuitable for a woodland retreat. Yet I donned it regardless. I craved beauty, sought visibility, and yearned to reclaim what I hadn't known was missing until it was reflected in another man's eyes. As I emerged into the hallway, he stood waiting. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, as if he had been waiting for me. His gaze lingered on the curve of my waist, tracing the slope of my collarbone. Silence enveloped him. There was no need for him to. No contact was made. Not that evening. Here we go again. Every movement, every glance, every brush of an elbow, every moment in the same room was electric, intentional. During dinner, we chuckled at my husband's tale of their road trip from years past. I handed over the salt. He offered the wine. Though our fingers never touched, the air between them pulsed with energy. As I lay in bed beside a man who thought he understood me, who loved me in his own way, an unbearable truth dawned on me. Without the gaze of another, my identity faded into obscurity. Unloved, unnecessary, just observed. I rolled onto my side, turning my back to my husband, my eyes aflame. No tears fell. I was unable to. I knew I'd pick it once more. A fleeting touch of lips. Danger lurks. The pain of desiring what was never meant for me. In that moment, a chilling clarity struck me. This was far from finished. it only grew deeper. The rain poured relentlessly the following morning, a steady beat marking time that felt foreign to me. I lingered at the kitchen window, the fog outside clinging to the glass as if it were breathing. Within, silence reigned. Excessively quiet. The house seemed to pause, a silent breath held in anticipation. My husband went to town alone, claiming he needed nails and something for the pipes. I didn't pry. I nodded, thankful for the quiet, despite its unsettling grip. His presence was palpable, even from a distance. The air shifts, a quiet presence more intoxicating than words. I sensed his presence as he entered the kitchen, yet I remained facing forward. The warmth of his body enveloped me, a subtle gravity drawing me closer with each moment he was near. "You didn't sleep," he murmured. I declined. "Negative. Same here." His voice was steady, controlled, yet I sensed an underlying tension, a sharpness just below the calm. I turned slowly, and there he stood, barefoot, shirt crumpled, hair wet from the shower. Our eyes locked instantly, reflecting shared fatigue, tension, pull, unspoken connection, and restraint. He stayed back, still waiting, yet he chose not to. The gap between us closed, not by inches but by unspoken truths. I confessed, my voice a mere whisper, that you occupied my thoughts all night. "I know," he said. It was palpable. It was chilling how effortlessly we spoke now, as if the barrier had shattered, allowing the truth to pour forth. I moved by him, heading to the counter, feigning distraction with emptiness. My hand shook a bit as I fiddled with a stack of napkins that were already in place. He spoke again from behind me. "Do you feel fear?" I glanced away. "What for? This is permanent." Our eyes locked. "No, it's not." He approached, measured and purposeful, while I remained still. He arrived but kept his distance. He stood near, the scent of him enveloping me, heat pulsing like an electric charge. "We've lost our caution," I remarked. "No," he consented, "but I still wish not to be." His hand extended, not to my waist, not to my hand, but to my wrist. His fingers grazed the interior, lightly following the pulse of a vein beneath the skin. My breath halted. He leaned in, forehead touching mine, not for a kiss. It was the most personal touch I'd experienced in ages. Just intimacy, no rush, no demands. He whispered, "I've never done this. I'm lost in this situation." I whispered back, "Neither do I, yet here I am." We lingered for a heartbeat, then separated. No words left to utter. Not at that time. Words would only dilute the silent scream that echoed between us. He approached the door, heading to the garage. "A new chain is needed for the bike." I acknowledged with a nod. "All right." Once he departed, I remained motionless, hand against my chest, attempting to calm the frantic beat within. I ascended the stairs, yanked open the drawer of forgotten garments, and selected a black soft sleepwear, a delicate top, delicate straps and lace framing the neckline. It was overly refined for a dreary day, excessively exposed for a home with 3 adults. Still, I wore it. I draped a soft cardigan over it, left unbuttoned, relaxed yet attentive. Chilly, gritty, the garage lay silent, a realm where secrets had no place. And still, here we stood, bent over the bike, hands greasy, jaw set in focus. He glanced up as I walked in, his gaze flicking over me, landing on the bare collarbone, the subtle shimmer of the fabric. "I believed you despised the garage," he spoke. "Absolutely. What brings you here?" "Simply because you are." He breathed out, cleaning his hands with a cloth. A moment lingered, inviting doubt to creep in. He crossed the room in 2 strides, halting before me, untouched, merely breathing. He said, "You're going to undo me. So be it." His gaze held a blend of reverence and taboo, as if he beheld something both holy and hidden. His fingers grazed a strand of hair from my cheek. I shut my eyes. The room held its breath, save for the rain's relentless drumming and our breaths finding their sync. He leaned in, and for a moment, I feared we might finally breach the boundary we'd skirted so delicately. Instead, he pressed his lips to my temple. Illumination. Gentle. Nearly sacred. It stung deeper than it comforted. He retreated. "Let's head indoors." I'm aware. Yet we remained still. That evening at dinner, Normalcy resumed. My husband chuckled at the old plumbing, quipping that we ought to finally swap out the porch swing that creaked with every sit. I nodded, filled glasses, served dishes. The performance was flawless. Flawless. Beneath the surface, I sensed a vibration within me. A concealed current beneath gleaming surfaces. He avoided my gaze throughout the meal. No. Yet, in a fleeting moment, our hands met over the dish, his touch lingering just enough to convey a silent understanding. I observe you. Memories linger. That night I slipped into bed in my soft sleepwear, a delicate top, the cool fabric softly caressing my skin. He saw. He grinned. You look great, thanks. He extended his hand, fingers brushing my arm, warmth mingling with strangeness. I allowed it. I faced him. Our lips met. I surrendered to the dance, the familiar steps of closeness etched in my mind. Yet I was absent. Incomplete. I existed in another realm, recalling the feel of another hand on my wrist. A presence brushed my skin yet claimed nothing. I felt tension, pull, unspoken connection for my true self, not who I once was. Afterward, he nestled close, fulfilled and at peace. I gazed at the ceiling, tears threatening to spill, not out of guilt but from understanding. I now exist in dual realities. The chilling truth was I couldn't bear to lose either one. I craved warmth and solace. I craved the familiarity of the man who had known me for years and the intrigue of the one who had just discovered me. And I understood. Forever I couldn't have both. Yet, at this moment I clung on tightly. The following day we departed the cabin. Silence enveloped the car ride. An uneasy silence, yet essential. As if binding a cut that remains untouched by blood. My husband drove, occasionally humming to the country station he favored on road trips. In the passenger seat, hands in my lap, I watched trees dissolve into fields. He lingered behind, still and silent, yet I sensed him. I sensed the storm's arrival before the sky turned dark. My husband occasionally mentioned the leaves' color, the chimney needing a winter clean, and plans for a long weekend later this year. I agreed, spoke appropriately, and smiled at the perfect times. Yet within I drifted to another realm. I pressed my fingers to my lips, as if his kiss lingered there still, as if I could conjure it with the perfect touch. That kiss unraveled something within me, not with fervor or abandon, but like an ancient door slowly yielding after ages of silence. It illuminated forgotten corners of my mind. Upon arriving home, normalcy resumed with alarming speed. My husband unpacked, began the laundry, and noted the garden's dryness. I glided through the house as if in a dream. All appeared uniform, sensations mirrored, yet everything was different. He vanished upstairs soon after dinner, saying he was weary. He and I drifted apart in the living room, evading each other's gaze like guilty souls at a funeral. He skipped dinner with us the next evening, claiming he wasn't hungry. My husband hardly paid attention. I did. The empty chair held a quiet weight. The room's shadow deepened in his absence. In bed that night, I lay next to my husband, his laptop illuminating his face with a cold glow. I averted my gaze, cheek against the pillow, heart heavy with the weight of the incomplete. I gazed into the darkness, lost in thoughts of the gentle rustle of sheets in the guest room, wondering if he too lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking of me. I rose at dawn sooner than I typically do. The house lay in silence. My outfit was deliberate. Dark jeans that hugged perfectly, a sleek black turtleneck, and understated makeup that added a hint of color without being flashy. My reflection gazed back, eyes inscrutable, concealing truths, no longer belonging to the woman I once knew. He descended shortly thereafter. He stopped at the sight of me, silent, merely nodding. We lived side by side, distinct yet inextricably linked. I mentioned to my husband that I was off to the store. We're missing some items. Take him with you, he muttered, eyes glued to the page. There's no point in you going solo. I paused momentarily. He overlooked it, or perhaps he was aware. Of course, he replied before I had a chance to answer. Glad to. The journey was brief yet seemed endless. The silence between us filled with meaning. It brimmed, heavy with unspoken words since that kiss in the car. I avoided his gaze yet sensed his presence, Each motion, each inhale. We strolled the grocery aisles, exchanging only words about produce and costs. I took onions, he snatched bread. We navigated the aisles as if performing in an unpracticed play. Yet it was in the pasta aisle of all places that something broke loose once more. "You always look like this," he murmured, his gaze drifting over a box on the shelf, bound tight as if a tempest brews within, known only to you. I faced him. "Do you believe this comes easily to me? The number, it seems, is consuming you. I believe you're weary of the charade." "I'm not pretending," I murmured. "I'm getting by." He edged forward. What occurs when mere survival falls short? No response was given. I was unable to. He took my hand, not with bravado nor to possess but just to sense. Our fingers grazed lightly. In that instant everything else faded away. The shelves blurred, fluorescent lights flickered, and the store's quiet hum faded away. In silence we filled the trunk with groceries. He shut the door softly, and we lingered in the parking lot side by side, as if anticipating a cue for our next step. As we drove by a storefront, I caught a glimpse of it in the reflection of a furniture store window. We were frozen in time, a cinematic moment. I turned slightly toward him. He observes me. Nothing else. Yet it conveyed all. That evening my husband mentioned it. "Were you both close to the furniture shop on Main?" he inquired during dinner. I paused. "Why not? I believed I glimpsed you mirrored in the glass. It might have been another." He spoke without raising his gaze. His voice remained tranquil, unwavering. Yet I sensed the change in warmth, akin to a breeze slipping through a closed door. "No, I meant it carefully. We stayed away from that place." He nodded, remaining silent. Yet the ensuing silence felt distinct, observing, quantifying. He stared at his plate, fingers frozen in place. I understood. The earth stirred beneath our feet. We stood exposed. No, the image was never there. Not that I was aware of. No photograph was captured. No evidence was presented. Yet the reflection, the one my husband believed he glimpsed, lingered in the house like dust, unseen yet omnipresent. The silence lingered in the gaps of his words. He lingered over his coffee mug, a heartbeat before sipping, how his gaze held on to mine, then departed just as I was about to read them. He never brought it up again. No. Yet, the next morning, he rose earlier than normal, fully dressed before I had even begun to wake beneath the blankets. He prepared breakfast uninvited, let the toast char, and stirred his coffee with robotic accuracy. He pressed his dry lips to mine, murmuring about errands before leaving. I lingered at the kitchen table, eyes fixed on the untouched toast and the vacant chair opposite me. Then I gazed upward. There he stood. In the doorway he lingered, t-shirt from last night clinging to him. Feet touched the wood, hair still wet from the shower. "I believed you were gone." I spoke softly. I remained. He entered the kitchen, occupied the seat my husband had just left, and leaned in, arms on the table. "He has a hunch." I never inquired about his knowledge. No need for that. Indeed, I affirmed. He probably does. We lingered in quiet for a beat. A bird called once, then again, echoing in the void we created. "I ought to go," he remarked. Silence reigned. Not out of tension, pull, unspoken connection, he added. "Staying will only worsen things." "You mean genuine?" He gazed my way. "It's happening now." It struck a chord within me I never saw coming. It was true. This was no mere flirtation. It was serious business. It happened. True things carry weight. Authentic actions bear repercussions. "Please stay." I spoke. "I'm aware." He murmured. "I haven't done that for that reason." My gaze fell to my hands, fingers gliding along the curve of my thumbnail. My hands felt alien to me now. More mature, weaker. Not the hands of a woman who once thought she held the reins. He rose, circled the table, and knelt by my chair. His hand brushed my arm, gliding down to my wrist, his thumb lingering on the pulse he knew by heart. "Speak it," he stated. "I'll be on my way." Yet I did not. I was unable to. That afternoon, a message from my husband arrived. "Trapped in a jam. Running behind schedule. Don't hold up for me." I read it twice, then tucked the phone away. Fingers quivering, I grasped the kettle. Water boiled. I cleaned a mug. I polished the pristine counter. I swapped my shirt. Brushed my hair. I aimed to feign tranquility. No, I wasn't. Entering the living room, I found him perched on the couch's edge, elbows resting on knees, eyes fixed on the floor. He glanced up as I walked in, rising abruptly, unsure. Really? He inquired. I remained silent. I approached him deliberately, each step a silent acknowledgement of the truth I could no longer ignore. I paused before him and took his hand. Indeed I did. I'm certain. Yet we remained untouched, not as we might have been. We lingered in that delicate silence, gazes entwined, breaths mingling. He lifted his hand, swept a lock of hair aside, and let his fingers rest on my cheek. You're trembling, he murmured gently. I'm aware. Ready to quit? Negative. He moved closer, almost too close, hesitant at first, then resolute. I leaned in and we lingered, still silent, simply existing. Two souls entwined in a mystery, both yielding entirely to its embrace. At last he withdrew. I must go, he stated. Coming soon, I acquiesced, despite my body protesting fiercely. I'll return. What's the reason? He stepped back, sensing my struggle to remain distant. I saw him ascend the stairs, the door to his room shutting with a haunting gentleness. That evening I prepared a meal for two. Alone at the table I sliced cold meat, sipping unwanted wine. Silence enveloped the house. Every sound, the refrigerator's hum, the ticking clock, the occasional creak of settling wood, felt magnified. My husband returned, weary yet smiling, and pressed a kiss to my cheek. He inquired about my day. I deceived. He inquired about additional wine, poured it out. We lounged on the couch, his arm resting effortlessly behind me. I embraced it, as if stepping into a familiar role. Later in bed, he moved close enough to feel my hip. I closed my eyes, pondering a wrist. Sigh. A silent please stay. Words unspoken. As a door creaked open down the hall, soft and cautious, I remained still. I just heard. I sensed he was still here. No. The morning came unceremonious. The sun seeped through the blinds, casting a pale, indifferent glow typical of early fall. Neither warm nor cold, merely light for its own sake. Alone at the kitchen table, I stirred my tea, the spoon tapping softly against porcelain, a clock ticking toward the unnamed. He departed. His words were unnecessary. His gaze slipped away at breakfast, coffee half full, shoulders tense by the stairs. His walk spoke volumes, calculated, intentional, as if practicing farewell with each movement. My husband was gone to work. The plate, devoid of eggs and toast, lingered on the counter where I'd placed it hours ago. He gently acknowledged me, mumbled about a late meeting, then slipped out the door with his familiar stride. I nodded, grinned, gave in to the kiss just enough to seem there. Yet I wasn't. Incomplete. I observed him closely. Inside, his bag lay half-zipped at the base of the stairs. I didn't inquire about his destination. I didn't have to. Endings require no justification. The quiet speaks volumes. He emerged from the kitchen doorway, a mere shadow, a still silhouette at dawn. I'll be away for some time, he stated plainly. I nodded, my voice trapped in silence. I didn't inquire about the duration of a while. I hoped it might improve. He included. For all. Yet I remained silent. He set his mug in the sink, a gentle clink echoing, and turned to me. Truly observed. Words gathered in his throat, heavy and unspoken. Words left unspoken, uncertain. Their time had slipped away. He gave a fleeting smile. The familiar silent arc of lips etched in my mind unbidden. I will return. He spoke. When will it happen? I murmured. He shrugged, defeated. When it aligns. We lingered in that moment, suspended in time. He pivoted, snatched his bag, and vanished down the corridor. I lost track. The door creaked open, then shut. The silence enveloped me. It saturates every corner, creating a paradox of vastness and confinement. No tears fell. I moved like a machine, cleaned the forgotten mug, towel folded, polished the pristine counters. I attempted to reshape my life to what it once was before his arrival. Yet the shape eluded my memory. Fragments marked the passage of the day. I drifted through rooms, beginning tasks left undone, organizing clothes, giving plants a drink. Fridge door swings wide, purpose lost in the chill. I perched on the bed's edge, eyes fixed on the spot where his keys once lay on the dresser. It lay vacant, yet their presence lingered in my mind. I prepared dinner that evening. I hacked at the vegetables with excessive vigor. The blade tapped steadily on the surface. My husband came home later than normal. He appeared weary, his tie-hung askew hair a touch disheveled. He brushed his lips against my cheek, inquiring about my day. I mentioned it was silent. We dined as one. He shared details of a colleague's retirement celebration. The printer has malfunctioned once more. Concerning an odd message from a vendor, I acknowledged. Produced the right noises. Inquired briefly. My face shifted. My voice answered, yet my thoughts wandered far away, revisiting unfinished dialogues. Brief encounters that faded away, rooms once alive with breath, tension, and a hint of belonging. Post-dinner, he poured a drink and sank into the couch with a newspaper. At the sink I scrubbed a plate endlessly. The dim window revealed a shadowy reflection, subtle yet unmistakable. I appeared nothing like a woman healing from betrayal. I appeared as if anticipating the beginning once more. In bed I lay awake, thoughts swirling. The ceiling loomed higher, an expanse away, as distant as the unreachable sky. My husband lay next to me, his arm draped lazily over the pillow, lips parted just a bit. I heard his breath and questioned how I'd managed to believe that was sufficient for so long. I rolled away from him and shut my eyes. Yet my thoughts wandered off to another space, in varied illumination, a unique voice, sharing secrets unheard before. The heaviness of his hand lingered on my back. He had captured the cadence of my breath perfectly. The quiet between us spoke volumes. Did he have me on his mind? He lay in a stranger's guest room, gazing at an unfamiliar ceiling, recalling the tremor of my fingers against his. I questioned whether the space we'd forged could extinguish what once connected us. Or perhaps it would smolder silently, biding its time for the next moment. Without him, the house was a chill, full. My husband remained present. The walls echoed with laughter, footsteps, and the scent of laundry detergent. Yet chillier, as if something essential had fallen away, unnoticed by all but me. Life went on in the days that followed. The dishes stacked and were washed. The letter arrived. Meetings were scheduled and attended. I grinned when it was required. I took calls, shirts pressed. Yet deep down a part of me remained askew. Merely a slight tilt away from equilibrium, just enough to tilt reality a bit. 7 days passed and I discovered the photo. It lay in my phone gallery, hidden among screenshots and recipes. An unintended snapshot. I was testing the front camera in the car, adjusting my hair in the screen's reflection, when it captured a shot unexpectedly. There we stood, in the shadows, reflected in the shop window. Exactly as my husband mentioned, his gaze fixed on me. I parted my lips in reply. Silence prevails. Hands off. The image revealed everything. I gazed at it endlessly. In silence I erased it. We dined with friends that night. I chuckled at just the right times, praised the wine, inquired about their daughter's recent employment. I exuded charm, observant. All remained oblivious. Once home, in the stillness of our quiet house, I faced the mirror in the bathroom and examined my reflection. I appeared the same, yet I switched off the light and returned to bed, slipping under the covers next to a man whose love once felt like the world. Yet, I envisioned a person who recognized me, brushed my heart, then vanished. Yet it won't last. Deep down I was aware he would come back. I would welcome him inside.